Hi, you're looking at a spreadsheet that I've created in Excel, and I've applied a number of features to it to include conditional formatting, the use of data bars. I've also sorted the data and created a chart, and within the chart applied a number of different features. I've also used the Merge and Center tool to center a title across certain columns, and in fact I've made a list of everything that I've done and put it in a text box. So what I'm going to do is reconstruct this spreadsheet doing all the things that I described in the text box so that you can see how these features work and how they were applied to this example. So the first thing I want to do is create a brand new sheet. Okay. Now you'll notice down here at the bottom, before I do that, let me just point out that I'm currently accessing a worksheet that I have renamed call list. So this data represents, maybe some registrar or admissions data that pertains to some students that I might want to contact because of their SAT scores. And so that'll be the data we're working with here, and I'll talk more about that as I proceed with this example. I also want to point out that down here at the bottom there's two other sheets that I've created, and these are just strictly practice problems. If you want to work through them, if you want to take some of the things that I describe here and apply them to two completely different sets of data, then I provided practice one, and if I click on that tab, this looks a lot like the data that was demonstrated in quiz 1 of week 1. You'll notice that the heading up here is kind of bunched up with the column headings, and it's kind of difficult to read. These columns are too narrow, therefore pound signs are showing up. Okay, so anytime we have numeric data and the columns are set too small, then you see these symbols in the cells just as an alert that the columns need to be expanded. So I've got that set of data, and I have another set of data that looks familiar. It's similar to some examples that I showed in previous videos. So again, you can play around with it. The idea here is that I have a lookup table, and that I can use the lookup table to evaluate the calculated weighted average and then assign a letter grade. Okay, so right now I've just typed those grades in, but the grades could actually be returned from the lookup table. And again, I'll let you play around with the data if you want to. But back to the immediate problem here. So I have this set of data, and I want to reconstruct this page. So let me do this. First off, I need to create a new worksheet. So down at the bottom left corner of the page, you'll see the tabs for the existing pages, and then over to the right there's a plus button, and if you click on it, it'll create a new sheet, and by default that sheet will be named sheet 3. But if you right click on the sheet name, you'll get an option to rename the sheet. And then, because of something that I'm going to demonstrate in the next video, you should rename these sheets using a descriptive name, but not putting any kind of spacing within the name. Okay, so avoid embedded spaces when you create the name. So whereas this is called call list, I will call this call list demo. Okay, so I've changed the name, and notice how I have written that. So I've avoided spaces, but I've still made it very readable by just making the first character of what would otherwise be, a new word appear in uppercase. That's called camel case notation, and it's used in computer science and in programming languages extensively. So again, avoid embedded spaces and use camel case notation when you name things. Now, I don't want to type all this data in again, so what I'm going to do is go to cell A3 and drag across to cell D3 and then drag down to cell to row 13, and I will have highlighted the range of cells from A3 through D13. And once those cells are highlighted, and you'll recognize that they're highlighted because there's going to be a border around it, then you can execute a Control-C command to copy, then click on the tab to the new sheet. See, that was in A3, yeah. So I'm going to place the cell pointer back in A3 and execute a Control-V command to paste, Control-V. And I have pasted all the data over here. Now, what I'd also like to do is to clear out all the formatting that has previously been applied. So with the data still being active, I'm going to go to the home page, find the clear tool way over here on the editing ribbon, and I've got a number of options. I can completely obliterate everything that's highlighted here, contents, formatting, everything if I choose clear all. I can clear out just the formats, and that's what I'm going to opt to do. I can clear out the contents and leave the formats. I can also clear out any comments, and I'll demonstrate how to create comments. And then also, I might as well show you how to create hyperlinks, and they can be cleared as well. So you have a variety of different clear options, and again, I'm going to choose clear formats. And I'll show you how to clear. I'll show you how to create a comment real quickly. And so right here, you see a comment showing up that says best prospect. Okay, and down here we'll put another comment on Larry, and to do that I'll click on the cell, then right click and choose insert comment, and it gives me some predefined amount of space in order to insert the comment, but that space can be expanded if I need to by just dragging on these sizing handles. Otherwise, I'm going to put in a comment, don't call this guy. Okay, so don't call this guy, and you'll notice that now there's a sort of a visual notation here, and so I can see by just glancing at the spreadsheet that something is stored in Larry's cell, in cell A13, and if I mouse over it I can see the comment. Now what if I want to clear out those comments? Again, I could highlight any cells where there are comments, go to the clear option and choose clear comments, and now the comments are gone. Okay, so let's just sort of deviate here from my lecture plan, since there was an option to clear hyperlinks, and since hyperlinks are kind of useful to insert into cells, let me now go ahead and launch a browser here. I have kind of a slow internet connection, so there we are, and I'm gonna okay, so here's Three Stooges movie, and that's at a certain URL or website address, and so in the browser address line I've just clicked and highlighted the URL, and now I'll execute. With that being highlighted, I'll execute a Control-C, and at this point the text is stored on the clipboard. I'm going to close up the browser, come back here and go to the insert option, choose hyperlink somewhere. Where is that? Over here. So there's a hyperlink tool. And when I do, it gives me a dialog box where I can insert the URL, and I'll execute a Control V and say OK. And now Larry's associated with a hyperlink, and if I mouse over it, I get a hyperlink indication, so the mouse pointer changes to a pointing finger. And if I click, it's going to open a browser and jump me out to that URL again. Okay, so that's how I create a hyperlink. And then again, if I want to keep the contents but clear out that hyperlink at some point in time, then from the home page, I'm going to need to again go to that far ribbon, the editing ribbon, and choose, in this case, clear hyperlinks. And it should have cleared the hyperlink. Let me try that again. Clear hyperlinks. Well, very interesting. It left the notation in here. This is surprising. Okay, so the hyperlink doesn't show up, but it still shows it underlined. So what I'm going to do is one last thing, go over here and clear formats. Okay, and it restores it to the state it was in. So I was a little surprised. I use many of these clear options routinely: clear all, clear formats, clear comments, because I'm a big fan of comments. But although I have put hyperlinks in spreadsheets and it's useful, I don't use this one nearly as often. So in any case, you get the general idea of how the clear option works, and it can be applied to one or many cells all at one time. All right, so back to the original data set. If I click here, I'm going to put in a text box over here. I'm going to rebuild this too, so that I have the instructions right on the sheet that I'm building. So how am I going to do that? Well, I could just copy and paste this thing, but instead I'm going to do this. Okay, so realize that there's an easier way to do this, but I want to show you where you can access the drawing tools. And if you go to the insert option, you have the same drawing tools that you have in Microsoft Word, except they're arranged in the menu just in a slightly less obvious way. So on the illustrations ribbon of the insert page, you'll find a shapes tool, and you have a text box tool, which I will then just draw onto the spreadsheet document. And with that object being active, there's a format page. So if you click on the format tab, you've got an option for shape fill, and if we want to fill it with some color to make it stand out a little bit, that's the way to do that. And then I'm going to go back to the original page, and I'm going to highlight the text within that existing text box, execute a Control C, then go to my new page, click within the text box, execute a Control V, and paste it in, and that saves me having to type all that in again. Okay, and I'm going to expand the width of that just a little bit, and at that point I've got my instructions sitting here where I can see them, and I don't have to keep switching back and forth. Okay, so let's take a quick inventory of what's happened so far. So we have inserted a text box to describe the topics that we're covering. I've shown you how to rename a worksheet, and I've shown you how to add a comment. Let's take a look at how we merge and center the title. So if I go back to the original page, you'll notice that along row 1, I have centered across the screen the word bonus. Okay, and let's change that from bonus to demonstration. And what I'm going to do is go to cell A1, type in demonstration, and then move this. Actually, I'm going to take this text box and scale it down just a little bit. Move it down just a little bit. And then along row 1, I want to have that text bolded, and I want to have it enlarged from 11 point to, let's say, 18 point. And then I'd like to have it centered between columns A and T. So the way I'm going to do that is to go back to the cell that the text is stored in, which is cell A1, and then I'm not going to drag by the fill handle, but rather I'm just going to click on the cell and highlight across, clear across the row T, and release. Then go to the home page. There's a merge and center tool, and I'm going to choose merge and center option, and it will then center that text across those columns. Now, it appears that the text is stored in cells J and K. It's not. It's stored in cell A1. So if I go back to cell A1 and click, I'll see the text appear in the formula bar. If I move over to cell B1, oh, it takes me to U1. Well, if I go to U1, then you'll notice that it's not stored there. So if I want to access the data to edit it further, I would want to click back in cell A1, and then I have access to the data in the formula bar. Okay, so again, let's look back here and see. It looks like I put made some changes to the text color and the text that is serving as column headings in row 3. And as I recall, the way I did that was to highlight the data and then go to the home page, and under cell styles I've got a number of predefined styles, and I believe the cell style that I chose was accent 5. Now let me look here and see. It does say change the column headings to accent 5, so my memory serves me correctly. I'm going to go over here again to cell styles and choose accent 5. Now there's nothing, oops, I gotta be careful what I do here. There's nothing sacred about accent 5. It just so happens that that's the option that I chose. I had to choose something, so I've chosen accent 5, and it'll give me a back color of looks like navy blue and a forecolor of white. Okay, so that'll contrast with the rest of the data nicely. Then as I look at the call list, I see that I've applied conditional formatting data bars, so let's go back over here. And the next thing I say I want to do is auto fit column widths. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do this. Now, you'll notice that verbal SAT right here in cell C3 gets chopped off. So the technical term for chopping off is called truncation. So the data in cell C3 has been truncated because the column's not wide enough to accommodate the column heading. So what am I going to do? I'm going to highlight columns A through D, and I can either highlight the row on those columns that has the largest value, and in this case has the value that's being truncated. So in those columns on row 3, I have a cell that's being truncated. The data is being truncated. So at a minimum, I need to highlight those. If you want to just highlight the entire set of data, you can do that as well. But making sure that I've highlighted the row that contains the truncated data, I want to go to the home page, and over on the cells ribbon there's a format option, and I can set these to some standard width of my own choosing. Okay, so if it's currently choosing a value of 8.43. If I were to expand that to 15, then, and I'll just do it and say OK to that. Okay, it enlarges the column width. Now they're excessively wide. I don't need them quite that wide. So what I'm going to do is go back to that same option, and this time choose auto fit column width. And what this will do is set them to the width that will allow all the data to be displayed, but make it no wider than what it absolutely has to be. So I guess another way of saying that is it's going to set it to the optimal width. And now everything can be displayed. Verbal SAT, the T's not being truncated. And it's been shrunk down as much as it possibly can. And that's typically what you want to do in a spreadsheet, because if you have a spreadsheet with a lot of columns and you need to print it, then you really want to try to optimize the width of these things, the width of the columns. Okay, so now let's take a look at conditional formatting data bars, columns B and C. So going back to the original page that I showed you, I've got data bars in columns B and C, and columns B and C are storing data that relates to the SAT scores. And so if I apply data bars, it allows me to visualize the relative size of each data point, of each cell value, relative to the rest of the data in that data series, so the rest of the data in that column. And so how am I going to do that? It's very simple. I'm going to highlight the data in those two series. Okay, so that would be the data that is in the range of B4 through B13. Go to the home page, find the conditional formatting tool, and on the pull-down list I have data bars, and then I can choose whatever color of data bar I want to use, and the styles of data bars as well. So I'm going to choose, for no particular reason, blue. Okay, and there we have it. And at a glance I can see that score of 600 is pretty large, and 640 is even larger there. So I leave it to you to determine the effect of data bars when it's applied to a series of data. All right, so we've looked at data bars, and we're ready to apply a conditional formatting rule. Okay, so again, this represents a set of data related to prospective students that I might want to call. Maybe these are all the students that are going to come to a SOAR weekend, and I have a limited amount of time, and I can only call some of the students. So what I've decided to do is accent the data down column D so that it makes the students with low scores stand out, and therefore I'll avoid calling them and concentrate my time on maybe the students that have stronger scores, higher scores. So what I want to do is highlight the data where the values down column D is less than 1,000. All right. So to start that off, I'm going to highlight the series and then go to the conditional, and that first cell in the series, incidentally, is cell D4. So I'll go to the conditional formatting tool. This time choose new rule, and then I'll create a formula, and I'll insert the first cell, which is going to in that series, which is going to be D4. So I start out with the syntax equal D4, and then I'll put less than 1,000. And so that's the rule, and any cell that evaluates true to that rule, then I want to apply certain formatting, and I will choose a backfill color of black. Okay, and say okay to that. And there are the people that I want to call, and they're the ones that have a total SAT score of 1,000 or greater. So conditional formatting, done that. Now let's take a look at sorting the data. All right. Now, first off, I had this data already sorted, but I'm going to sort it again and again. So I'm going to take all of the data minus the column headings, highlight it, and I'm going to go to the data tab, and on the data page I've got a couple of different ways that I can go about sorting this. I can sort the data in ascending order or descending order. Okay, so ascending order is alphabetic, and descending order in this case is reverse alphabetic. I'm going to sort it in reverse alphabetical order based upon the data in the leftmost column. So if I choose this tool, it's going to apply it to the data in the leftmost column of my spreadsheet, and it's going to put it in reverse alphabetical order. Okay, and if it changes the order of the data in column A, it will do it not only for the column A data point, but it'll do it for all the data in that series. So it'll do it for all the data in that row. So when it changed the location of Shemp, it also changed all the data related to Shemp. So hopefully that makes sense. And the reason why it did that is because I had all of the data, the entire data set highlighted. All right, now what I want to do is not use the data in alphabetical order, but I'm more interested in reorganizing the data so that I see the students with the highest math SAT score at the top of the list and the students with the lowest math SAT score at the bottom of the list. So I don't care whether their names are, in ascending order. This isn't a phone book or anything. I'm more interested in organizing things based upon the SAT scores. So what I should have then in the end is Chuck at the top, and then I have Lucy and Jethro, who both have math SAT scores of 600. So which one would it put in row 2? Well, I'm going to describe this sorting criteria in such a way that if there's a tie condition, as there would be in the case of Lucy and Jethro, under those circumstances it'll resolve the conflict by looking at another column of data. It'll look at the verbal SAT score, and since Lucy has a higher verbal SAT score than Jethro, Lucy will appear in row 2 and Jethro will appear in row 3. And so using the correct terminology here, I will make column B data my primary sort key, and I'll make column C data my secondary sort key. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to highlight the data not the column headings, but just the data. And I'm going to go to the data page. So I click on the data tab up here, go to the data page. And now, instead of using these quick sorts that arrange data in either ascending or descending order on the leftmost column, I'm going to use this sort button here, which will allow me to describe things in greater detail. And so it is suggesting that my primary key be column A data, and I'm going to change that. Now, if I have column headings, it will look at the row above the first row of highlighted data and use column headings. So I have column heading up here above my first row of data of math SAT. I'm going to make that my primary sort key, and then I'm going to sort on values. You can sort on other things, and I don't really want to go off on a tangent now and talk about sorting on font color or anything like that. The first time I ever saw this, I thought this is kind of crazy that you'd ever want to sort on a font color, and then later on I had an occasion to do that, and it simplified things tremendously. I got to make a long story short, I got a large set of data from the registrar's office, and it was unsorted, but it had been constructed in a way that semester 1 data was of one font color and semester 2 data was of another font color, and I needed to separate out the semester 1 and semester 2 data, so I ended up sorting on font color, and it grouped both sets of data together. The semester 1 data together, the semester 2 data together worked perfectly. So crazy as that might seem, and as unlikely as you are to use it very often, there are times when sorting on some of these other things is useful. But for now, we're going to sort on value. Okay, so it'll actually look at the contents of the cell. And I'll be sorting on SAT, and I want to sort from largest to smallest. Okay, so I could go smallest to largest or largest to smallest. And so it'll put the largest data at the top of the list. And then I can add a level, and at this point, this is where I define my secondary sort key. And I'll choose verbal SAT, again sort by value, and I'll sort from largest to smallest and say OK to that. And I end up having Chuck followed by Lucy followed by Jethro and so forth. Okay, so there we have it, sorting. And the next thing I want to do is create a cluster chart. So now we're going to get into charting, and what I'm going to do is highlight the entire set of data, and I'm going to generate a chart from it. And I highlight the column headings too, because I want those column headings to be used as the labels in my chart. And I am getting a low battery light, so I'm going to have to move to another room and plug this thing in. So pardon me, I'm at home right now, and I'm in a room, moving to a room where there is a return air supply, and it makes a little bit of noise, so I'm trying to avoid this room, but you may hear a little bit of background noise here that you didn't hear before. I'm also in a room where there's hard floor, so it may create somewhat of an echo effect, and hopefully that's not a big problem. All right, so now that I have power, I'm ready to create this cluster chart. And let's take a look at what the cluster chart is going to look like. The cluster chart is going to show each individual's 2 scores, SAT and their math and verbal SAT scores. Okay, so we'll see 2 series generated for each of these people that are in the described in the data. And I'm going to go back here to call this demo, and it just occurred to me that I have told you wrong. Glad I did discover this now. I'm going to highlight the column headings and all the data for the first 3 columns. I don't want there to be a total series generated, okay? So I'm only interested in seeing a comparison of math and SAT scores for each of the students. So having highlighted it this way, next thing I want to do is go to the insert page, I think, okay, and I have then charts that show up here, and if I know what kind of chart I want, I can go ahead and choose it from the tools that are displayed in the toolbar. If I'm not quite sure, there's an option for recommended charts, and in this case it is recommending clustered column charts. Okay, so that's exactly what I wanted to use anyway, and you can preview what these other charts would allow you to visualize. But here I'm going to have a comparison of each of my students' math SAT, verbal SAT. I'll have a numeric scale over here where I can see where the column intersects with that scale. And I have a legend down here and a place to put a chart title and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to choose this option, say OK to this. And there's my chart. I'm going to move it over here a little bit. And I will have the ability to choose some added elements over here. So if you click on the Add Chart Element tool, I can change some of the layout features. Okay, so under Axis, I'm going to choose primary vertical, just choose some of these, and I'll choose chart title, and I can have the chart title above the data. I can have the chart title overlaying the data. I'll choose overlay. And let's see, what else might I want to do? I'll choose grid lines, and I'll choose minor horizontal grid lines. And I think at this point I'll leave this up to you to kind of, play around with. Okay, so legends, I can put the legend to the right. I can put the legend up on top. That'd be a bad place to put it. Put it to the left, put it to the bottom. Okay, so by default I think it was putting a legend at the bottom anyway. And now I'm going to change the chart title here to maybe prospect list or something like that. Prospect list. Let's make this prospect list. I can't talk. March 2016. And there I have my chart. And I told you to do a few of these things down here. You can play around with that. And the last thing I'm going to do is change the style, the chart style. Okay, so I have on the format option, I have chart styles, and this is the one I chose. This is the one I really like the best. And you can play around with some of these others, and you can also scroll. Okay, so that one looks like it has some potential. All right, so I'll change it from what it was before and choose this option this time instead. And there we have it. I have created a chart, and I believe I have demonstrated everything that I intended to demonstrate. So you've seen how to insert text boxes, how to rename worksheets, how to add comments, how to clear out comments and hyperlinks, and how to add hyperlinks, and we've seen the Merge and Center tool. change column headings by using one of the accent styles. We've looked at a couple of different conditional formatting options, data bars and formatting rules. We've talked about sorting data, and we've looked at how you go about charting, and I think at this point it's enough of a demonstration that we can wrap things up.